There's a lot of pollen coming up here. Welcome to UUCC, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Canandaigua. We're a group of spiritual freethinkers who gather to celebrate life, build community, and better the world. Wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. I'm Laura Wink, your worship associate for this morning, and the service today will be led by our minister, the Reverend Eileen Casey Campbell. Woo-hoo. Thank you to everyone on this morning's worship team, including music by Bill Mells and our choir. Today will be an intergenerational service, so everyone's welcome to stay. If this is your first visit, welcome. We invite you to sign the visitor's book in the entryway. If this is your 1000th, we're still glad you came. This service is being live streamed to our YouTube channel. We plan on continuing with hybrid services, so you can join us each week here in person, on Zoom, or later on YouTube. To help us connect better with our friends watching from home, please turn, face the camera, and give a wave. At the end of the service, we'll invite our friends on Zoom to turn their cameras on and wave back. Wait a second. Yep. The final draft of the church members and friends directory is ready for review. Thank you, Scarlett, for all that work. A print copy is at the back of the sanctuary for review, or you can review it online. If you already sent a comment or change, it was hopefully updated last month. Tomorrow, June 2nd, is the first evening for our Felons Family Farm CSA pickup here at church from 5:15 to 6:45. Please do not arrive early unless you're showing up to help unload the truck and set up. If you don't see the truck and you see only cars, don't worry. Sometimes Eric uses a car instead of the truck. If you expect to arrive right at the end of the pickup window, please let Eric know if you're able to do that. Next week will be our second Sunday potluck after the service. We invite you to bring a dish to share, but even if you forget, you are welcome to stay. We always have enough for everyone. Next Sunday will also be Reverend Eileen's last Sunday in the pulpit, and our service will be followed immediately by our annual meeting. The meeting will be a time for quick and easy congregational decisions before potluck, and we encourage all members to stay and cast their votes. On Saturday, June 21st at noon, our congregation will host a booth at the Finger Lakes Pride Fest with our Rochester UU sibling congregations at the Ontario County Fairgrounds. If you're interested in helping blow bubbles, give glitter blessings, or letting folks know about our church, please let Reverend Eileen or me know. And please sign up for a shift. The sign-up is in the back on the bulletin board. This summer, we are planning for simple Sunday services in the months of July and August, and we need people just like you to lead them. If you sign up to lead, you'll have a script provided, and you'll be able to choose your own readings or have them selected for you. It's easy and more fun when we all take turns. See Danielle Lyon to sign up for your slot. Last year, we earned $750 in the holiday craft fundraisers, so start your crafting. We're hoping to make some more money this next year. Are there any other announcements? Karen.
I just wanted to remind everyone that we will be having the board meeting on Tuesday this week by Zoom at 7 p.m. If anybody has any questions or concerns, please let me know or drop me a quick email. Thank you.
Our closing hymn today is a German folk song, and you get to practice your high school German, as I will right now. And if you didn't take German, well, we'll give you a little quick primer here. There's only one phrase. It's the title of the song, Die Gedanken sind frei. And it means the thoughts, die Gedanken, sind means the word are, and frei means free. The thoughts are free. Die Gedanken sind frei. And you'll see it a couple of times in the song.
As we prepare to be fully together, I remind us all to silence phones and devices. We now enter a space of worship. forgot to recruit a cellist later. Oren, come on up. Fantastic. Got it? Okay. I invite you to join me in our cellist lighting words. We gather this hour as people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. Thanks. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning in celebration of the life we share together.
Good morning. This morning I want to start by telling you a back in my day story. So if you're a person here who's younger than me, just bear with me on this one. My apologies. But back in my day, when I was a kid, kids used to have a favorite animal. It was a thing you had to have if you were a kid. And I think this part is probably still true for kids today. You have to have a favorite animal. You have to know what it is and be ready to tell people when they ask you, what's your favorite animal? And back in my day, we had some pretty standard favorite animals. They were the classics. You know, dolphins, horses, wolves. You might hear about a bear from time to time, certainly an elephant. They were powerful, sleek, mighty animals, beautiful animals, right? And these days, kids these days, that's where this is going. Kids these days, especially my 9-year-old and his friends, which is all of the anecdotal evidence I have about kids these days. Their favorite animals are things like the possum, the raccoon, a rat, a variety of bugs, squirrels, scrubby little animals, not that powerful, not that beautiful if you ask most people, not very mighty. And I sort of wonder, based on this anecdotal evidence and no scientific data at all, if this generation is into such scrappy little wild, tenacious garbage animals because of the world they're looking at living in as they get older. Did this Gen Alpha, if that's what we're calling them, look around and say, okay, you left us a mess? Fine, we'll be a trash animal. You left us a dumpster fire? I'll be a raccoon. You left the world on fire? I will be a cockroach. And I think, in some ways, that's why we come to church, isn't it? One, to learn from all the generations that surround us when we show up together in the same room on Sunday mornings. But two, and maybe more importantly, to remind ourselves or be reminded by the folks who show up here alongside of us on Sundays that the wild tenacity of life lives in us. Not just its power and its majesty, but its scrappiness, too. And with that on our hearts, I invite you to rise in body or in spirit and sing together our first hymn, number 303, We Are the Earth, Upright and Proud. time for a story. And so if you're a smaller person or even if you're a larger person and you want to hear the story closer up, you are welcome to come sit up front. We've got a few stories today, so if you want to see how that goes and then decide whether you want to sit up front for a later story, you can do that too. You can bring your grown-up with you or leave them back at your seat. And you can go back to your grown-up or your seat or the wiggle zone anytime you feel like you need to move. And this morning's first story is about what the heck are all these flowers doing here? Does anybody know? If you read the newsletter, you probably know. You know? What are all these flowers doing here? It's flower communion. And maybe you know, I'm going to tell you whether you do or not, why we have flower communion in the spring. Does anybody know who started the tradition of flower communion? Jody knows. Yeah, tell us.
Norman K-Tech.
Yeah, Robert. Norbert.
Norbert, sorry.
We mashed them in the wrong direction. Norbert Chopik, who was, let's tell a story about him. He grew up Catholic. His mother was a devout Catholic. His father didn't hold much with any kind of belief. And Norbert grew up in the Catholic Church in what was then called Bohemia. He became an acolyte, which is like an altar server, which is like a helper to the priest up front, when he was 10 years old in 1890 at St. Martin's Catholic Church. But as he grew older and older, he grew a little more and more disillusioned with the church. A little more like his father. He wasn't sure what he believed. And at 18, he apprenticed with his uncle. That means he learned a job by doing the job, to be a tailor. And he became a successful tailor in Vienna. His family sent him to Vienna as a young adult, and he learned how to be a tailor. And in Vienna, there were lots of different ways of being Christian compared to where he grew up in rural Bohemia. And he discovered the Baptists. And he became a Baptist. He said, my home church didn't feel quite right, but this feels a little better. So let me give this a try. And he became a Baptist so fiercely that he became a Baptist minister. And he founded about a dozen churches from Ukraine to Budapest. And yet, slowly, his faith began to change, Norbert's faith. He left Bohemia under government threat in the early 20th century when he accepted a call to serve a Baptist church in New York City. And he came to the United States. And then he served that church for a few years, but then wrote in his diary in 1919, I cannot be a Baptist anymore, even in compromise. The fire of new desires, of new worlds, is burning inside me. So Norbert and his wife, Maya Chopik, left their Baptist church and they joined a Unitarian church in 1921. Not this one. It was one in New Jersey. Yeah. But I bet it was pretty similar to this one. And they joined for the same reason, after leaving the Baptist church, for the same reason that I think lots of folks here joined, which was because their children wanted to go. Their children liked the religious education program, and that is the power of our religious education and also of our children. And so they joined that Unitarian church and they worshiped there for several years. But after World War I ended and his home country was independent, Norbert realized he could go home if he chose to and live safely there, so he thought. So he and Maya and their children returned to a country that was now called Czechoslovakia. Yeah. And he founded Unitarian churches there. He founded the Prague Religious Fellowship. Not this one. A church across the ocean in a country that is called something different now, but was called Bohemia when he was born, and then Czechoslovakia when he was an adult. And he started with no members, just like this church started about 35 years ago with no members. But there was something special about Norbert because he founded this Prague Religious Fellowship, and in 20 years they had 3,000 members. It was spreading like weeds. And the traditional Christian service included a communion of bread and wine. They would bring bread and wine forward and break it apart and share it together But because of the people in his congregation having such different beliefs about what that meant, because they came from so many different traditions to join together there, he decided they needed to do things a little differently. So one day, walking home from church, Norbert Chopik looked around at the beauty of the countryside, and he saw so many beautiful wildflowers, and all of them different from each other, but all of them beautiful, and all the more beautiful because they were growing together along the side of the road. And in 1923, after seeing that, that was when he developed the flower communion. He asked his congregants to bring a flower from church. He told them, just pick it from the roadside on your walk in the morning, or from your garden, or maybe you'll go to the shop if you're fancy and buy a flower, and bring a flower with you to church. They all placed their flowers on the altar, and then the church community all took a different flower that someone else had brought in an act of communion, and they brought that different flower home. And they held this ceremony every spring. He led a bold church, a church that was very different from the other churches in that area, a church that was maybe thinking beyond its time, a church that was taking risks and making big, bold, liberal decisions. And that church is the same church that we hold. And for all of this, when the Nazi Party power started spreading in the late 1930s and early 1940s, Chopik's ministry was under threat. His wife left for the United States with their young adult children, but he stayed behind. And in 1942, he was arrested by the Gestapo, accused of the high crime of listening to foreign broadcasts on the radio, and sent to prison in Dachau concentration camp. And the prisoners told after his death that even in the starvation and torture of that camp, Norbert organized a flower communion. His fellow prisoners, finding whatever flowers or weeds they could along the edge of the fences, brought them together and exchanged that little moment of beauty together. And his wife, Maya, in her escape to the United States, brought the flower communion to Unitarian churches with her. And so, like this one, and before this one, the Unitarian Church of Cambridge, Massachusetts, which held the first American flower communion in 1940. And this is what we take part in this morning, an affirmation of our continuity of generations of the struggle for ever-widening liberty. This flower communion is lovely, but it isn't a diversion from hardship or harm. It is a gentle fierceness in which we proclaim freedom for all, including freedom for our own minds. And so he asked that churches do this communion, and we do it today in his memory, for him and for all of us. And that is the end of our first story. Thank you for listening, and you can return back to your seat.
Now is the time in our service to join together in the spiritual practice of generosity. Our gifts of both time and money support our church in its work. Each week, we like to spotlight a group or committee and thank them for their gift of time and talents. And this week, the group is Bill and the choir. Thank you. 1/4 of our plate collection for the blooming season will go to our service partner, Family Promise of Ontario County. Family Promise unites existing agencies, volunteer organizations, and the faith community in Ontario County to provide a pathway for homeless children and their families to secure reliable housing and self-sufficiency. You can give to this morning's offering by placing cash or a check in the basket or by one of the options on the screen. Please make a note that your gift is intended for today's offering. We now gratefully accept your offerings.
again, you can come listen to up close, and I could use some help telling it. If I have a couple of helpers, it would be great. This story, as you make your way forward, I will tell you, is called The Elephant Who Thought He Was the Strongest. And it comes to us from Central African folk stories. Now, usually elephants live together in groups, in communities, in social groups, but occasionally a young elephant will go out on his own and live by himself. Okay, this is our elephant. And he was one of those elephants who decided to go out on his own. And he thought he was just fine on his own, and he didn't need anyone. In fact, he thought that he was so powerful and so strong that he was probably the strongest thing in all this world. And this elephant started to brag about being the strongest in the whole world. And he would stomp his big elephant feet. Just like that. And he would say, "Can't you feel the ground tremble? I am the strongest in the world." And he would scoop up water with his trunk and spray the other animals with it. Yeah, and he would say, "Can't you tell I'm the strongest in the world?" And the rain spirit heard this lone elephant's boastful tone and came down from the sky. Do you have a rain spirit? Rory, come and be the rain spirit. There's more animals, okay? There'll be animals. We'll come to it when we come to it. And the rain spirit floated down on a cloud like rain spirits do. And they said, "Elephant, did I hear you saying you were the strongest of all?" And Elephant said, "Look at me," and stomped his feet to show. "Aren't I the strongest of all?" Yes, just like that. And the ground shook and the animals shuddered. And he said, "No one could be as powerful as me. And that is why I live alone and I don't need anyone because I'm stronger than all of them." And the rain spirit said, "Surely not stronger than me." And he let off just a small little boom of thunder. Just like that. It was so small you maybe didn't even hear it. And he said, the rain spirit said, "I don't think so, buddy. I am the bringer of life. I give water to the animals to drink, and water for the ground to grow plants and for the flowers to bloom. All of that comes from me. You're not strong enough to live without me." And the elephant, who was very boastful, said, "I sure am. I don't need you at all. I don't need anyone." And the rain spirit said, "Okay, so be it," and gathered up all the clouds in the sky and went away to hide. And I bet you can guess what happened pretty soon without the rain spirit in the sky. What do you think? Well, the ground started to dry up. The trees started to wither. All the flowers wilted. And without plants, the animals were hungry. And they were thirsty, too, because the rain in the puddles and the watering holes and the streams and the rivers was drying up. And there was one little puddle of watering hole left, and that was the elephant's, he said. "This is mine, and I will guard it fiercely." He didn't let any of the other animals drink from it. And then he decided he needed to go off for a little while, and so he chose Tortoise. Orin is the tortoise. He chose a tortoise to guard his little puddle of a watering hole for him. He said, "Tortoise, guard this for me, or else." And then Elephant went away for a little. 1, 2, 3. Wait right there, Elephant. Elephant took a little bit longer journey than we thought. And Tortoise guarded the watering hole, and even though the animals came and begged him for food, and they said, "Please, please," right, animals? "Please, please, give us water. We need a little bite of grass from near your watering hole. We need something." Tortoise said, the elephant said to guard it or else, and I don't want to cross the elephant. Well, all the other animals started to gather together, creep up on the tortoise, And they crept and they crept and they got closer and closer to the watering hole, and Tortoise started to get a little panicked and said, "Stay back, this is Elephant's watering hole and it's not for you." And then Hyena came to the front. Here's Hyena. And she didn't say a thing, but she just showed Tortoise her toothy smile, just like that. And Tortoise backed right off, and all the animals drank up all the water in the hole. And that was when Elephant came back. Elephant, are you with us? Do you want to come back? Here's Oh, probably from Easter. All right, Elephant came back. Hold on, Hyena. And Elephant was so angry with Tortoise that he allowed Elephant's watering puddle to be drank by all the animals that Elephant swallowed Tortoise. So you're going to pretend to swallow him. Whoop. So Tortoise, you really Okay. Elephant swallowed the tortoise whole, and the tortoise was in Elephant's belly, and now the tortoise was getting a little mad. And the tortoise was bonking the sides of Elephant's belly with his head, and he was pawing at the inside of Elephant's belly, and Elephant was turning around in circles saying, "Stop that, stop that!" And they were making a whole bunch of racket, and that is what caused the rain spirit to come back. The rain spirit came back. Hyena. Sit still, buddy. We got a goofy hyena. The rain spirit came back and said, "What is all this racket?" And Elephant said, "I ate the tortoise because he didn't guard my watering hole, and now he's kicking and biting and pawing the inside of me, and he won't stop, and I'm out of water." And the rain spirit said, "So maybe you're not the strongest in the world." And Elephant said, with a big sigh, "Maybe I'm not." And so the rain spirit said, "Spit up the tortoise." And Elephant did what the rain spirit asked, spat out the tortoise. What? Where was he? The tortoise came back, and then the rain spirit gathered all the rain clouds, and caused a big downpour, and the plants drank, and the animals bathed, and the grass grew back, and the flowers bloomed, and everyone knew their place. And this is the end of our story. Thank you very much for helping tell it. You can go back to your seats. Careful of the little rain.
And the choir.
And I invite you now into a time of centering and meditation, followed by some shared silence. We remind ourselves that by shared silence, of course, we mean the absence of grown-ups talking to one another so that we can listen more closely to the sounds of life. So if you're in the wiggle zone, maybe you even want to lie down on your back. And if you're in your chair, you maybe want to let your shoulders relax and your eyes fall closed. And wherever you are, you might imagine that a gentle rain is falling. Not the kind of rain you want to run away from and hide under an umbrella, but the kind of rain that feels delightful after the end of a hot, dry summer day. So let's take a deep breath here in the rain and let it out with a sigh. There is trouble in the world, but I can be brave. Not brave like a warrior, brave like the first seedling to reach its head toward the spring sun, bold like the chipmunk who scampers up to loot the backpacks at the campsite, courageous like the chickadee who who chooses curiosity over fear as she sets her light as air body down on my fingertips for the briefest of moments. There is hardship in the world, but I can be strong. Not strong like a superhero, strong like the mama possum who carries all those wiggly wriggly babies safely on her back. Fierce like the tiny thorns on the black-capped raspberries along the forest path, reminding every creature who comes to taste when enough is enough. Powerful like the trickling desert stream that takes its time to carve a canyon out of the rock. There is sorrow in the world, but I can be hopeful. Not hopeful like someone with a magic wish. Hopeful like the tide who rises and falls without failing, no matter what happens on the shore. Expectant like the trees of the forest who reach out to one another under the ground. Longing like the flower that lifts its soft, unguarded petals to the sky, waiting for bees and butterflies, waiting for a tomorrow that includes the fruit of her openness. And may the silence we have held continue to grow in us. Amen. And now it's time for one last story. And you can sit wherever you're comfortable for this story. I don't need any helpers, but if you want to listen closer up, you can do that if you like. This is a story of a different kind of communion, and it is a story about a woman named Wangari Maathai. Do we know her? Have we heard of her? Some people have, some people haven't. I'm excited to get to tell you about her today. Even some of the kids have heard of her. I got to meet her once when I was a young adult, and I'm so excited to tell you her story this morning. She was born in a country that is a different country now, even though it's the same place on the map, just like Norbert Chopik. It was the British colony of Kenya in the year 1940, the same year as the first American flower communion, remember, in Cambridge, Massachusetts? But she was born halfway across the world from there. Her parents were farm workers who worked on land owned by colonizers, and Wangari and her brothers were sent far away to go to school because her parents were so insistent that they get an excellent education. So they were sent several towns away so that they could go to school in a bigger city. She was a smart child and a hard worker, and she always did very well in school. And because of that, she got to travel to the United States when she was a young adult to study science in college. And then, again, she traveled for school. She went to Germany to get another science degree, and then back to what was by then the independent nation of Kenya to finish her education with a doctorate degree in zoology. And what do we think zoology is? Yeah, Oren. It is the study of animals. There's a little clue in the name if you've ever been to a zoo, right? Yeah. So that was what her doctoral degree was in. She noticed when she moved back to her home country as she was finishing her doctorate that so much of the depleting animal populations in Kenya and so much of the human poverty in East Africa were because of the extractive treatment of the environment by colonizers. And what do we think extractive means here? In this story, it does, I would give it a thumbs down too, Isabel. And in this story, it means taking and taking and taking without relationship, right? Without any thought for the health of the land or the animals or the environment itself, using the land for our own good only. So she noticed this, and in the 1970s, she started a form of activism called the Green Belt movement. And it seems very simple. She started a tree nursery, where from seed she grew some little baby trees. Her idea was to grow baby trees and then transplant them throughout Kenya. And she started by planting just 7 trees. Slowly, she recruited other Kenyans to help her, mostly young women with children just like herself. And they planted trees all over Kenya, and those trees started to heal the earth. They provided shelter and food for animals and for people. They provided fallen limbs for firewood for communities. They helped hold water in the ground to stop the soil from eroding. And with less erosion, all of the nearby water sources were much cleaner. They removed carbon from the atmosphere. They allowed other plants to grow and live and thrive. They helped humans who were planting them and tending them and gathering beneath their shade to grow community. And the communities of humans also had to organize to defend their trees against anti-democratic colonial powers that were still lingering in East Africa, even in its so-called independence. The government called these women, and I quote, crazy and mad for their movement, and Wangari even briefly went to jail for her work. But she kept persevering, and by the 1990s, she traveled around the country planting trees of peace. Her group protested any extraction on public protected green land, and the movement spread beyond Kenya to the rest of East Africa, and then beyond Africa to the rest of the world. And as of today, the Green Belt movement that started with 7 trees gifted back to the earth has now planted more than 51 million trees. Yeah, wow. You can see the effects of this reforestation communion in satellite images of Africa from the 1970s until now. You can watch the belt of green appear over East Africa. And trees, in communion with their human friends, They are still doing the work of healing the earth. And this is the end of our third story. Thank you for coming close to listen. You have an elephant. Poppy has an elephant. The elephants have shade. And you can return to your seats, or you can stay wherever you're comfortable. We started worship today with the hymn from which this service's title is drawn, "We Are the Earth, Upright and Proud." It is, as those of you with a Protestant background might already know, a total rewrite in lyric and in message of the old classic hymn, "A Mighty Fortress is Our God." And this is one of the greatest gifts our faith gives us, I think. Not just permission to create and recreate meaning out of whatever partially dysfunctional inheritance we've received. That is a gift of Protestantism itself, honestly. It's what Martin Luther thought he was doing when he wrote "A Mighty Fortress is Our God" in the first place, remaking meaning in a world where he deemed that the church he had served was corrupt, but he wanted to insist that God was nevertheless a bulwark never failing. And it is a gift to be invited into meaning making, certainly. But even more so, I feel assured every spring at Flower Communion that I truly belong in this faith because it is a faith that insists on belonging. It insists that we sang in the rewritten song that we are not set apart from the wildness of the earth, from the power of the earth. All of our purpose, whatever meaning we derive and whatever power we may claim, is wrapped up in being part of the whole of creation. And if any gods exist, they do not as a fortress beyond this earth, but as part of as well. Sometimes, like the lone elephant, right? We like to think of us humans as set apart from one another, as total individuals. And importantly, we like to think of ourselves as set apart from the rest of life, set apart from what is wild. There's wild, and then there's us, right? Whether we are especially blessed and chosen or particularly bad and broken, we are separate. And if our faith has one thing to say to the world, to the lone elephants among us, it's that we are not alone. Whether your aloneness makes you feel uniquely powerful and important, or whether it makes you feel powerless and inadequate, it is a lie either way. We do this ritual every year because it reminds us that different as we may be, we are not alone. We belong deeply to a web of life so much larger than any single one of us, than even just our species. When the psychologist Viktor Frankl wrote about his time in the Dachau concentration camp, the same camp where Norbert Chapek was imprisoned, he talked about spending the first days there in despair over the depths of cruelty that humans were capable of. And then, he writes, he was issued a used jacket taken from a prisoner who had been executed. And he found a tiny rolled up copy of the Shema Yisrael, the daily prayer, secretly stuffed into the hem of the sleeve. And he writes that everything changed for him then. He realized that the same humanity that is capable of great cruelty is also capable of meeting that cruelty upright and proud with songs of praise on our lips. The same humanity that is capable of enormous destruction is, when rooted in belonging, also capable of holding hope and promise, holding the hope and promise of a flower communion in that very same camp. The same humanity that has desecrated the earth is, when we know our place in its web, part of its healing. Humanity is capable of saying, we can't do much, but we can offer beauty. We can plant 7 trees and watch the web of belonging turn 7 into 51 million, turn the beauty of hope into healing. Friends, the message of this morning and of most of our mornings is that we may be little, but it takes so little to change the world. A scrap of paper a flower, a tree, you and me, and a little hope. May it always be so, and amen. I want to invite you to come forward as you feel ready to choose a flower different from whichever one you brought, and if you didn't bring one, to choose one anyway, because there is abundance here. And as you choose your flower, take it in the knowledge that you hold in your hands a connection to all those who belong to the web of life with you. Take it in the understanding that you yourself are held by that very web, by that larger love that moves among us. Take it and remember that we are not powerless as long as we know we belong to one another. So come forward and rejoice in communion this morning.
One of those big ones. Yeah, the purple one? Sure.
I offer as the benediction these words from Rebecca Tossig. This is the wild emancipation I wish for all of us. A world where we are free to be, to move, to exist in our bodies without shame. A world that isn't interested in making all of its humans operate in the exact same way. A world that instead strives to invite more, include more, imagine more. Amen. And I'll ask you to rise in body or in spirit as we prepare to sing our closing hymn number 291, a German folk song, as Bill told us, which became an important part of the OG anti-fascist resistance in Germany in the 1930s and 40s. And maybe we practice that opening line one time together.
Die Gedanken sind frei.
Die Gedanken sind frei. And we'll do our best.
If you're joining us on Zoom, now is the time to turn your camera on if you'd like to say goodbye. And now please join me in our words for extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.